Yo ho ho, welcome back to another video. Thank you for joining me today. As always, I hope you're keeping well. So I'm going to do my first ever ICK video today. I'm going to be talking about Booktube trends that really just give me the ick. Booktube trends that just don't sit well with me, that make me uncomfortable, that I hope will die soon. Let's get into it. First of all, I would just like to congratulate the Booktube community because for the longest time, ever since I joined it, it was bitched about on the internet as young women who only read YA and, you know, there's no worth in watching anything like that. And now it's changed to young women who only read romantasy. So come on girls, we're moving on up in the world. I think we got to take our wins where we can get them. So my first ick is really a very common one, and I'm definitely not alone in this, but that is the sheer amount of overconsumption, the promotion of overconsumption, the cutesifying of overconsumption, and just the sheer ridiculousness that is book hauls these days. Like when I started back in 2012, yes, I've been making videos for that long, don't judge me. I remember thinking at the time, whenever I was doing monthly book hauls, that I had to get a certain amount of books each month in order to make a worthwhile haul. Can you guess that amount of books that I'd buy each month that I'd be like, yeah, this is a good amount of books to finally make a haul video for? Can you guess? Can you guess? Because I'm telling you now, it was 7. 7 was my lucky number. If I had bought 7 books in 1 month, I would do a haul on that and I would be like, this is a plump, ample book haul that people are just going to eat up. And now you look at people's book hauls and they're like 30 books, 40 books, 50 books, sometimes even 100 books. Now, obviously, this is not all done in 1 week, or you'd hope it's not all done in 1 week. But I think there is a lot of discourse to be had around the amount of consumption and the promotion of just buying things and wanting to own things, and no one really talks about like the psychological aspect to that. No one really talks about like whether this could be like a trauma response, whether you were someone who grew up without a lot when you were younger, so you're making up for it now as you're older. No one really talks about the fact that a huge amount of people would be going into credit card debt doing these hauls. I know it because that's what I used to do when I was younger. I just whack a load of books onto the credit card and then, you know, just pay off the interest each month. Like I only paid that debt off like 2 years ago. But the thing is now I can't watch book hauls that are like 30, 40, 50, 60 books in one video. It makes me anxious, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. And a lot of the time I can't even actually enjoy the content because most of the time people have bought so many books in abundance. They have no idea why they bought the book in the first place. They can't give you a synopsis. They can't give you any sort of idea or any sort of value as to what incentive they had to pick up the book in the first place. I don't want to have to go over to Google and Google the synopsis of a book that you held up in a video just because you can be arsed to do it yourself, or because it's too much of a job because you've bought too many books and you just want to get this video done or whatever. I think the worst of these videos is when people lean into the capitalism of it all and think that that's cutesy, or, you know, they're very much like, oops, I bought 50 books. Tee-hee, how did that happen? It's like, well, I mean, it happened because you bought them. Since COVID hit, you know, our cost of living has gone absolutely through the roof. We can't spend the way we used to spend, regardless of how much our disposable income is. And coming onto the internet and just bragging about all the money you've thrown away on books, and then several months later you'll see certain creators unhaul the exact same books, comes off as really distasteful. And I think that's another element that makes these over-the-top book hauls just not fun to watch anymore. Now, you do have people who say you can't overconsume on books. That's not something that is possible. You know, it's not like makeup or something that's going to go off. Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand when people come from when they make that argument. But when there's people in the book community who act like books do go out of date, who will say like, oh, I haven't read this book in a year, so obviously I'm just never going to get to it. I would say a year is not particularly long to have an unread book on your bookcase. And I think if we were to take a dive outside of the bookish sphere and actually interview people who are readers on the street, who don't participate in any sort of online book communities, you would get people saying that they have unread books from like 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, and so on and so forth. I do think there is a natural collector mentality when you are a reader. I do think there are times when we'll worry that maybe something is about to go out of print, or we're about to lose the cover on a certain edition and, we will bulk buy certain things. I think that is all perfectly normal bookish behavior, but I think when the actual goal is just to buy a huge amount of books to only film a video on it and then later on discard said books, I just don't really see any sort of purpose of the video in the first place. I think there is very much a dark side to haul culture online, and I guess to sum up my point in one sentence is that it's okay to not haul books, it's okay to haul library books, it's okay to haul 5 books. Not everything has to be done in abundance, and there might be an audience for that, but a lot of the time people are more interested in your actual views on books, in having an actual discussion on books and having books read, rather than just seeing someone hold up a book and say they can't wait to read it. My next ick is one that really ties into my first one, but this is a trend that I really hope dies soon because it is so gross whenever I see it. It is the sheer lack of self-awareness when it comes to promoting the fact that you buy all your books from Amazon. I am aghast to see that if you type in book haul into YouTube, you will see people who not only have stacks of boxes from Amazon in their video to promote the fact that they're doing an unboxing book haul, you will see the fact that they put Amazon in the title of their video. So many people also put the Amazon logo up in like the corner of their video to promote like, I got a huge Amazon book haul, book haul, book haul. Oh my God, like, have we forgotten that bookshops are an actual thing? Have we forgotten that libraries are an actual thing? And there was a brief moment in the kind of Booktube community between like 2017 and 19, I want to say, where there was a brief moment of self-awareness where many creators realized that like, oh my God, I haven't actually stepped into a bookshop in a very long time. I'm going to make sure that I go out and I support my local bookstore. So many people got into the habit of just buying all their books from Amazon, and there was a brief kind of pushback with several notable creators in the community at the time who were making content around supporting your local bookstores, who were making content around pre-ordering books from authors' websites, making content for promoting the library. It was a very brief moment in the book zeitgeist, but it made people aware of their buying habits and how much they have been relying on buying their books from Amazon. And to be perfectly honest, nowadays, I feel like it's not even worthwhile buying books from Amazon anymore, because a lot of the time when I go on it, at least, and I look at the books that I might want, I see that they're pretty much the exact same price as they would be in the bookstore here. And I have been making an effort over the last couple of years, ever since I started totting up how many books I was actually buying online and, where my money was actually going. I have been making a conscious effort to buy less. And even this year, like, I haven't bought one book from Amazon yet, and I'm hoping that I won't. I think as readers, we are realizing the value of our money and knowing that we should, put our money where our mouth is and support local bookstores, support local businesses. And you can't say at this point that people aren't aware that shopping from Amazon is not good for the environment. And, we know of all the dumping that Amazon does. We know that Amazon actively tries to price gouge books because they're making so much profit on selling other things. And even most recently, when it came to supporting your local bookstore day, I saw so many people do ads for Amazon on TikTok and on Booktube where they were talking about like, oh my God, Amazon has an amazing sale. Yeah, because they're price gouging bookstores because they're hoping that you spend all your money on Amazon so that you won't be able to support your local indie bookstores. Like, come on. We are more than aware now, and I think at the very least, as viewers, we need to stop consuming content from people who are actively endorsing Amazon at this late stage of capitalism. Another trend that I hope will die off soon, but I know in good faith it probably won't because people are too intent on getting their bag, and I suppose that's fine or whatever, but I'm just kind of sick of hearing about it. And that is the unnecessary promotion of book/reading products and then the inevitable linking to a storefront. Now, there are certain things that you can buy that will make your reading habits a little bit better, will make your reading a little bit easier. When you're having this conversation, you definitely have to mention the fact that there are certain reading products that I think are completely useless for me, but that's not to say that they are not needed and they are not an actual aid for somebody else. However, I do think that the reading products and the linking to having certain products in order to have a cohesive reading routine has just gone too far. Like, you do not need a special plush chair that you again buy off Amazon. You do not need to have like all these different accessories. For the most part, you do not need all of the things that people on BookTok and Booktube are trying to promote to you that are a necessity for your reading routine. And I think it's very manipulative how people are trying to shill these products and kind of shill you buying things on their Amazon storefront. It's very much like, if you want to be able to read the amount of books that I do, then you're going to need this, and this to create and curate the perfect reading routine. There's no such thing as a perfect reading routine. For the most part, for a reading routine to be successful and to become a routine, you need to have, a bit of peace and quiet. You need to be able to concentrate. So preferably having a good night's sleep is also a good thing to have here. You need to feel comfortable and to be able to feel relaxed in order to make that concentration come through and to be able to sit and read for a significant amount of time. I mean, aside from having like a tea or some sort of beverage next to you, you really don't need all that. At the end of the day, reading is quite a low maintenance hobby. And I think when you get down to it and you start really looking at the products that people are trying to sell to you in these videos, you realize that not only is it something that you don't need, it's something that is really cheap and bad quality and will more than likely break. It's something that this person is desperately selling to you because they want to make money from you. They want you to use their storefront and they want to be able to make bank off of promoting these more than likely useless things that you might use a handful of times, either until it breaks or then until you lose interest and realize it's something you didn't ever need in the first place. The only thing that I can get behind that I've seen people promote, and I'm like, that is actually a really good idea, is the little remote controls and the stands for Kindles for when people are lying in bed and stuff. As someone who lives in Ireland, when it gets incredibly cold in the wintertime, I'm always usually tucked into bed by like 8 and 9 o'clock because I can't stand sitting up in the cold. And the idea of being able to read while being completely snuggled up is very appealing to me. But aside from that, most of the things that people are trying to promote to you is crap. It is. And you also don't need to be filling the pockets of some useless influencer. The next trend that I'm really not a fan of, and that I've never really been a fan of, although I can say I've probably participated in it, is the extreme book on hauls as a result of overconsumption. So I love a book on haul. I love doing a book on haul. I love taking my books into the secondhand bookshop and getting a voucher. I love clearing out things. I love organizing things. Like, book on hauls are very satisfying for me to do and to sometimes watch. However, I do think it's gotten out of hand now where people are solely unhauling books to get their TBR down. Like, that's not something that's new in the book community. People have always done this, but it's always been an aspect to unhauls that I've never really liked. As a viewer, I would rather watch a book haul of books that people have actually read and they're able to tell you why they're getting rid of them and why they didn't like them and this and that, rather than just holding up a book yet again and being like, I have no interest in reading this. This has been sitting unread on my bookshelf for 6 months, so it's got to go. I just don't find the extreme unhauls super satisfying the way other people might, because again, it just reminds me of the amount of money someone has spent recklessly, the amount of money that they're not going to be getting back, because you can't say that like the money that you put into your book collection, if you ever sell it, you're going to be able to get back and then some, unless you're collecting first editions, that sort of thing. I feel like unhauls are more fun when someone has read everything that they're getting rid of and they're able to like actively like bitch about the books and be sassy and, you know, kind of give a good amount of information as to why they didn't like this book and why you maybe should avoid it. That's always far more entertaining than someone who just has never read the book and they're just getting rid of these books because they feel intimidated by the amount of unread books that they've let accumulate on their shelves. And even then, you know that this is a cycle that's going to be repeated, because if the overconsumption doesn't stop, then the extreme unhauls aren't gonna stop. Like, my last unhaul is probably one of my most successful videos that I ever posted in such a short amount of time. I was unhappy that there is a good amount of books that I got rid of in that I didn't read and stuff. And luckily no one really gave me any flack for that, because I was able to talk you through, like, yeah, I was kind of manic and I bought all these books on a whim, and I've learned from my lesson. And because I've learned that lesson, I'm not going to get stuck in that cycle of buying and then realizing, well, I've just bought a bunch of books that I have no interest in never reading. So I can understand it. I can understand how people kind of get caught in these cycles. Really, when it comes down to it, you do need to take a certain amount of accountability as a creator and be the change you want to see. And that's kind of something that I've always tried to focus on over here. My next ick is the fact that I hate how much Booktube has become so influenced by BookTok. And I hate that there's like this active lack of individuality when it comes to creating content. And so many people, I feel, are relying on looking at what's popular on BookTok and bringing it over to Booktube and hoping that they can recreate and get into the algorithm and, you know, get some sort of momentum going with their channels. Now, obviously, BookTok just got huge during COVID, and it is responsible for getting so many people either into reading in the first place or back into reading. There is a reason for that, because there are certain books that are promoted that really anyone can get into. And, you know, I'll never take that away from someone. Like, if you're reading, good for you. I don't care if it's something that I would never be interested in reading. As long as someone is reading, they're excited about it, and, you know, they're having that time for themselves that isn't reliant on being on a phone or on a computer or whatever. I think good for you. You can't walk into a bookstore now without seeing a table of like what's hot on BookTok or a BookTok top 10 and stuff like that. But I do hate how so many creators have jumped on the bandwagon and are trying to ride the coattails of BookTok on Booktube. Like, I think there is a huge lack of creativity in Booktube at the moment. And I think a lot of this is stemming from people who are trying to like get into the algorithm by reading, like, you know, like books that are popular on BookTok. And obviously there are some videos that do really well, but it's usually people who already have a massive viewership. And I think what it comes down to is that, you know, YouTube is long form content, and there is worth in doing long form content. There is an audience for long form content. And I think, you know, looking at that and then branching out and doing book related videos that people, you know, want to sit down for like 40 minutes to watch, you know, while they're having dinner or while they're doing a bit of cleaning and, you know, want something on in the background. The way people can like skyrocket to fame on BookTok is absolutely not the same to how people can do so on Booktube. And again, I think there is a bit of jealousy there. I think, you know, around COVID, when so many people from the lifestyle community on YouTube jumped into making Booktube videos, there was an amount of jealousy there. And those are the people who are also doing well on TikTok. What I dislike about this trend most is that there are so many ways that you could be making creative, interesting content around taking inspiration from BookTok. But so many people decide to do the bare minimum, bland, basic. I read BookTok's top 5 books and here are my thoughts. It's like, everyone knows what those top 5 books are. A lot of us just aren't interested in hearing it. A lot of people have heard about these books time and time and time again that, you know, we don't want to hear about it anymore. And if content creators actually embraced the nicheness that you can find on BookTok and the smaller communities and the genuinely good book recommendations that you can find on there, especially if you're someone who's been a reader of many years, there are so many different aspects that you could create long form content around, but people just don't really do that. I think I'm just really looking forward to when people get their spark back when it comes to creating long form content on YouTube. I feel like so many people are just doing like the monthly staples and just aren't inspired to make anything different or out of the box or anything like that. And I think it also is down to the fact that the community is quite oversaturated with content creators, there feels to be more competition between us nowadays. If I want to consume book talk content, I'll go over to book talk. Like, I don't need to hear about it on Booktube. I don't need to see people reading Normal People and My Brilliant Friend and Colleen Hoover on YouTube or in my feed or whatever, because I'm just not going to click it. This next ick is probably one that's more of a pet peeve for me, but it is one that I am kind of worried about getting any sort of pushback on, because I feel like my opinion might be a little bit controversial, but it's about audiobooks. We're going to get into the audiobook debate, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm not here to say whether I believe audiobooks count as actually reading a book. I think you're engaging in the same content in two different manners, and I have no problem if people put those listened to audiobooks on their reading challenge or whatever. My problem is when people who solely consume audiobooks for the sake of getting through books faster, for the sake of pushing up the numbers on their reading challenge, cry ableist when people call them out on the fact that they are listening to something on like 3 times the speed and they're not actually properly engaging with the content they're listening to, and they're not even retaining what they're listening to, as being very evident in their monthly wrap-ups. Now, I personally view audiobooks as an aid, as a tool for those who may struggle to just sit and read, and there are a number of different reasons as to why someone might struggle with that and would prefer using and utilizing audiobooks over reading a physical book. I don't have an issue with that. If I did, I would be an asshole. However, I don't think it's fair and it's just for people, and we know people in this community love listening to audiobooks in order to get their numbers up. I don't want to, gatekeep and say there's a right way or a wrong way to consume an audiobook. I think, if you have a super good attention span and if you can multitask and stuff like that, whatever. It's not my business. I'm not someone who consumes audiobooks, so I shouldn't necessarily have an opinion, but I find it so distasteful when people get blowback because their reviews aren't great and, what they talk about and how they talk about a book that they've consumed audio-wise just doesn't live up to par with how they talk about books that they've actually sat down and read manually. In my opinion, you can't cry ableist when you aren't using audiobooks as an aid because you have some sort of impairment when it comes to reading. When you are solely using them to bump up your numbers and to be able to say, oh yeah, I read 25 books last month, you can't cry ableist. Like, I get what you're trying to say and stuff like that, because I do feel there are people who have opinions on audiobooks who are ableist, who don't take into account the fact that there are many number of reasons as to why someone may prefer to use audiobooks. It's very easy to not think about that when you don't have any issues yourself. So I'm more than aware of that, but I just can't help but side-eye people when they get super defensive and they cry ableism and they're just trying to bump up their numbers and stuff. Again, it's just distasteful when you yourself don't have any issues when it comes to that. My final ick for you is probably more of a micro trend when I start talking about it, and you'll be like, I haven't really seen videos about that, or I haven't really clicked on anything like that. Well, I have, and if I had control over the algorithm, I would never see one of these videos recommended to me ever again. And those are mostly reading vlogs that focus on performative reading, aesthetics, and setting unrealistic reading routines. So these are the videos about, enjoying a slow morning or a slow evening, and, everything is perfect in the video. They've got the lighting, they've got the candles, they're cooking a meal from scratch, and everything is slow and calming and relaxed, and oh, it's so like aesthetically pleasing. And it's like, okay, a video like that once in a while, fine, grand, whatever. The idea that there are certain people online who are really trying to cosplay as if this is their life and this is what their days off look like and this and that is just ridiculous. I am so tired of like performative reading. There are people in this community who have admitted that they skim books, or that they haven't really read books that they said they have, or they only read the dialogue and this and that. It's just like, okay, we need to like roll everything back, strip it back, and get back to the roots of why this community is a community in the first place. Our goal is to read books and then discuss them at the end of the day. And I don't think certain content creators realize that they're really outing themselves when it comes to their wrap-ups or it comes to their reviews, because it really goes to show that they aren't doing this over the top like annotation and taking notes. When it comes down to it and they open their mouth and start talking about a book, you can really see like that was all a facade and that was all for the camera and that was all for B-roll for a vlog, because they really haven't retained the information that they should have if they were in fact doing that. It's social media, it's not that deep at the end of the day, and there is a lot of smoke and mirrors online. There is a lot of performative elements. There are people who just like making videos that are solely focused on aesthetics, and I think if you're someone who is more motivated by aesthetics and stuff like that, and it kind of gets you in the mood for reading, that's fine to engage with that type of content. But I feel like there are so many people who are just like so phony and so fake, and there's certain people that I just cannot watch anymore because their fakeness is just really coming through. Not only is what they're filming that they're doing fake and solely set up for the camera, like how they're coming across and like how they use their voice and this and that, like everything is just 100% fake. I just find it really grating because I'm one of those people who loves a bit of realness from time to time. I don't need to know the ins and outs of my favorite content creator's life. I don't need to know what they do for a living. I don't even need to know their surname at the end of the day. I need to see something that is reflective of my own life when it comes to the content that I'm consuming. I don't know if I'm just becoming a bit jaded from all the years of consuming and making book related content, but there's just so much phoniness to it nowadays. There's so many people who just have personas. I really struggle to watch certain videos nowadays because I'm just so aware that like this isn't real, that this is all set up. All these shots are set up just to make a video and just to garner views and interaction and all that sort of thing. I would much rather see someone's kind of like more hectic day-to-day life. I think what rubs me the wrong way about it, if we're going to get down to the core of it, is that if that was real, what a privilege to lead a life like that, you know, because most of us don't have that ability. We're lucky if we can even do that on a holiday where we can just have a nice, slow, relaxed day where we don't need to be anywhere and no one is demanding anything of us, you know. So I think that's what grinds my gears the most about it, is that like not only is it super unrealistic and not even realistic for the person that is putting it all together, it feels like the content creator is actively trying to rub their lifestyle in your face and being like, don't you want to aspire to this? Like, don't you want this to be your life? I'm like, no. I prefer having the fear of the unknown and knowing that I may be able to get a nap in, but I may not be able to get a nap in, you know? Like, I just can't stand it when people are trying to promote their reading routine as something that you should aspire to and something that's actually realistic when it's not, and it's not even realistic for them. I'm sick of the phoniness. I'm here for the realness. And yeah, I'm hoping that 2025 becomes a better year for Booktube and book content and stuff like that, and people start using their own initiative and stop relying on what everyone else is doing. So those are my Booktube icks for the moment. Let me know if you have any that have been grinding your gears. Feel free to vent about it down below. If you want to keep up with me outside of Booktube, you can follow me on my Instagram and TikTok, because I make short form bookish content over there that I don't really share over here. And if you haven't done so already, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this ranty little video and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.